Okay, I hope that you enjoyed that question and it gave you some food for thought. It certainly did in our circle. And right now we're going to move into our podcast interview, we're calling it, but an interview. And I decided we decided to highlight a relatively new member, get to know Ivy. Oh, and I'm going to ask Ivy, is it C? Yes, fantastic. And so Ivy is doing something quite related to our question, getting us thinking about business. So welcome. We're going to highlight the two of us, Ivy, and I was fascinated by the company name Secretariat because I rode horses in the 70s. And I actually like to joke that I kissed my horse goodbye and rode my husband into the sunset. But, I knew that Secretariat was a very fine horse. So tell me, how did the company get its name? Claudine, can you highlight the two of us? Pin, I think it's called Pin, both of us.
Claudine, you have to pin the two people who are being interviewed. Do you see where you do that?
It's okay, we'll continue until we get pinned. So Ivy, can you tell us a little bit about how the company got its name from a horse?
Yes, so I did some research because I knew this question was coming. So not only it's Secretariat's 50th anniversary this year, I heard over the news like they were having this celebration for this horse, but basically because we are litigation experts and consultants, we want to be best in class for our clients. So most of these clients are very predominant lawyers in a very global firms. So having that name kind of sets us as, best in class, best in breed, cream of the crop. So, I mean, there's tons of consultants out there, like all the big fours. They're definitely high contenders, all the big four accounting firms. But how do we really, showcase something very special and different from, the boring, I want to say, PwC, EY. I'm sure you guys all have seen that. So this is what I learned, and I realized that the jockey who last kind of ride the horse and had got won the race was called Ron Truscott, and he is a Canadian from New Brunswick. So even though we're a global firm, we have some Canadian roots with the branding as well. The logo we have is actually four horseshoes, kind of grouped in a square shape. So I guess that represents the kind of the four feet and well-rounded. So that is what I've gathered from the research I've done from
Ah,
talking to a bunch of the partners here and of course the person who started the firm. So it's very interesting to me too that that's the case.
yeah, yeah. No, Secretariat was an exceptional horse. So how do you explain what you do?
Yeah, so that's very interesting because the client base I work with ranges from could be a mom and pop shop wanted to sell their business or wanted to retire or transfer their business to a sibling or a family member. More recently, I've seen the boomers trying to kind of retire and take a step back and whatever wealth they've accumulated in the business, they'll take it out as a special shareholding and then pass the remaining of the business to, let's say, a child, and they will gain the value and whatever value they accumulate from that point in time will be the kids. So it's kind of called like a state freeze. You're freezing the value at a certain point in time and taking it because you've built it for yourself. Remainder and the future is for your children. So that's very um, a lot I've been seeing lately, and that's not really the litigation side. So a lot of my clients are on the litigation side where they're coming in and they're in a very grave situation with either being sued or suing somebody for, let's say, breaching a contract that they have and it's affecting their business. So that realm of commercial litigation, businesses could be, again, very small businesses up to global conglomerates. As well, another niche area I do is family law. So equalizing assets at separation date and marriage date, and calculating spousal or child support, or helping the lawyer get through that
Oh,
calculation.
okay.
There's tons
And-
of, yeah.
Yeah. So you've seen a lot. So what's one of the most unusual evaluations you've been part of doing?
Yes. So recently I've been asked to value a nuclear power plant in Finland. And that power plant, started being built, but didn't get finished. So of course, people are suing various parties for that. And I want to say another thing is I've asked one time to value a phone number for a taxi cab company.
You evaluate what?
A phone number. The phone number, because you know how like Pizza has a phone number, it's very catchy. Those things are actually worth quite a bit, because the value from, it's just remembering and being dialing, like that's cash flow. So value is all about cash flows, future cash flows coming in. So that taxi cab was, I guess that they had a dispute with a family dispute, siblings, and they're like, you know what, I just want you to buy me out. Like I don't want to deal with you anymore. So, but it's like a taxi company, and the phone number is, everybody knows that number, and that's back before Uber, obviously. So it's just interesting when you value something that's not tangible.
Right.
How do you split the cash flows from, when you pick up a phone and call a taxi cab, like that's cash in, like you pay for the cab. I'm sure you pay some sort of licensing fee to use that name, Beck or whatever it was from before.
Yeah.
So there's like things that anything can be valued really if there's cash flows.
Yes,
So it's
that's
very,
right.
very interesting, be it the nuclear power plant, be it a phone number. So to me, it's just like, and there's everything in between, like the standard stuff, like a business, like, so
Yeah.
that to me, those two kind of just opposite ends of the spectrum. It's very unusual and very interesting.
Yes. And what's the favorite part of your work?
Because of what I just explained, I get to look at a lot of industries. So I'm not specializing in any particular industry, because it depends on what the lawyer is coming in with their query and what the client is experiencing. So it could be in any industry, and the beauty of it is we have to now learn the industry and what the trends or an outlook look like. And at the particular date we're trying to do evaluation, what does that look like? Again, I always go back to COVID, pre-COVID, because it's just so different when you do a value of a company, especially when it's like a consumer good, or if it's like a necessity. Like
Right.
depending on what industry you're in, you can either be thriving, or you're like, you know what, I'm out of business. So it's just very interesting, the industries and how people run their businesses. And in doing valuations, you have to talk to management. So you really get the inside scoop of what's going on in each business, and you can't really do that with a lot of jobs. So I find that like that snowball learning effect, even though I'm working on that nuclear power plant, somehow some concept I learned from that file would apply to another one, even though they're not in the same industry. But having that snowball knowledge just over time really gets you elevated with just knowing how kind of the world works.
Constant learning.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for helping us understand a little bit more about what you do over at Secretariat. Your role there, I forget your title. It's quite impressive, though.
Oh, a director. So I'm just director at the Toronto office, and we have about a team of 30 just in Toronto, but globally we're 450, and we're doing different types of disputes. So construction disputes, but family law, of course, and commercial tax, just anything that you either have a dispute with another person, with a state, such as CRA, like the tax actually, um, it's just as soon as there's a little bit of dispute and people are like, oh, the number, we need a number. That's kind of where my expertise come in.
Yes, for sure. And finally, I've got a out of the blue question. If you were stuck on a desert island and you had time on your hands, which book would you want to have with you?
It's a great question. I have a couple of books that are on my list. So just given current events, a lot of tragedies have been happening. So I feel like even and school has started with my kids, so it's just being very hectic and overall like the weather, everything's put negative. So there's this book called Good Vibes, Good Life, How Self-Love is the Key to Unlocking Your Greatness. So especially in the fall months, I find that it's very important to prioritize my self-care and well-being because of all the hustle and bustle with like everything that's happening. And especially for me, it's more the kids and hoping to get home in time to see them before their bedtime is another struggle for me. So trying to build some positive habits and boundaries and keep positive as much as I can, given, some of the sad news we've been hearing about like things happening in the world. So that's very important to me, the kind of prioritizing for the fall season.
Okay. And could you repeat the book?
Yes, I can actually paste it in the chat
Oh,
as well.
thanks. Thank you.
It's called Good Vibes, Good Life, How Self-Love is the Key to Unlocking Your Greatness.
Thank you. Sounds like a good one for the book club too.
Yeah.
Great. And is there a podcast that you'd like to have downloaded so you could listen to that?
So I didn't check the podcast. I was hoping to grab like a physical book, which I haven't done in a
Okay.
while.
Okay.
But podcast wise, there is a podcast called Rework, which is also based on a book. It kind of moves you to remove yourself from traditional definition of success and find success in different ways. That's why the book's called Rework. So I'm trying to get a whole, listen to that podcast as well. And I've heard some great things from colleagues about that podcast, just change the way of how you define success. And it just, it gives you a different perspective.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time. I'm really happy that we got to know more about you, Ivy.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, our absolute pleasure. So, Claudine, what do you want to do next?
Okay, so I think our next breakout room, Elizabeth?
Okay.